Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam.
So, the question was that we have two parallel lines. One is Ishvara, Jagat, Jiva, which by itself sounds logical. That in order to have this type of Jagat, you need infinite power, infinite intelligence, infinite presence, and therefore we have Ishvara. Now, what is the connection with Brahman and Atma? How does that connection to Atma and Brahman come? That link has to be there to understand. How do we connect it to?
Yeah, we'll see the entire teaching, how it is connected.
Okay.
And why Ishvara is talked about, or Brahman as Ishvara is presented actually. So,
but in a purity, Brahman seems to be a little pure. Brahman seems to be separate from Ishvara.
So the answer to the question that why even Ishvara has to be presented when Brahman can be taught as Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, let us say, there is a Swarupa Lakshana where Brahman is presented as that which is existence but not confined to space-time.
Okay.
Because normally the existence we understand is in space-time. Okay, when we say something exists, we always ask where and when. Correct.
Correct. Yeah.
But Satyam, when we say Brahman as Satyam, we have to give up the space-time dimension, you can say there, and understand it as just existence as it is. And but such an existent vastu, is it jadam? Next question comes. No, it is not an insentient jada vastu. That's why jnanam also is there. Even the transcendence of space-time and the jnanam, when we say, is it like something which is doing the jnana karma? Okay, because jnana means we always understand it as some kind of a activity, correct? Because knowing itself is a verb. So when we say Brahman is jnanam or knowledge, is it something doing the action of knowing? That means Brahman becomes somebody who is doing some action. It becomes like that. Even there, because the Satyam and Jnanam comes along with Anantam, we also understand that Jnanam is Nyaptihi, like that Bhashyakara says in the Bhashya there. So, this Jnanam is the very nature of Brahman. Consciousness is its very nature, and it's not an activity which it is doing. And the Ananta Shabda also is there, which makes it limitless with reference to space, time, and objects. Now, when even this Swarupa Lakshanam is presented, since the word Ananta is there, okay, so how do we explain this Ananta? If you go and read the Taittiriya Upanishad Bhashyam, when you say it is Ananta with respect to space, how do we establish that? Then we have to talk about it as even the Karana for space, correct? Because the Taittiriya Upanishad itself says, Tasmad etasmad atmanaha akasha sambhutaha. So that which is the Karana for Akasha itself must transcend the space and must be space-wise all-pervading, correct? Because space itself is in this Atma. That is the teaching. Similarly, time-wise, how do you say it is Ananta? Means it is Akarya, we say it is Brahman is not a Karya. Because only effects are created in space-time. and Brahman is never a karya. It is even space, even time is something which is really there only in Brahman. Time as a time, how do we even recognize time? Only in terms of change. And to recognize change, you require something which is invariable, correct? Only if there is an invariable cognizer, you can say this has changed from being this to this, and that change itself only is the measure of time for us. So the invariable is the one which is really there. Even the changing aspect which is indicating a time is simply a superimposition on this invariable consciousness. So this Brahman itself is an akarya, and therefore it never comes into being in time. Therefore it is a karana for both space and time, like that Bhashyakara says. Since Brahman is karanam of space-time itself, therefore it is ananta with respect to space and time. And similarly, with reference to every object also, if we take, Brahman is the Jagat Karanam, we have to say. Each and every object. First, if we say it is the cause for space-time itself, then obviously we have to say that within space-time also all the objects are there in space-time, correct? Any other object. Now all these objects, are they separate from Brahman? If we look at that, then there also all the objects also in our Srishti Prakriya, we show that they are all derived from these Panchabhutas only, whether it is the gross physical universe or the subtle body of senses and mind and even prana. Because we have a model, creation model, which talks about the Trigunatmika also, it is correct. So the Prakriti or the Maya Shakti, which makes Brahman as the Jagat Karanam, itself is having these three gunas, and therefore the Panchabhutas which are potentially there, which are called Tanmatra, when they manifest, then the different aspects, the Sattva aspect becomes the subtle body, in fact the mind and senses. The Rajas aspects becomes the subtle body, but it becomes the prana, and the Tamas aspect only becomes the physical body and all that, and the physical universe. So like this, we have a certain understanding of this creation. So this creation models are presented. Why they are presented? Because there is a discussion even in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad Bhashya, where why should the Upanishad even talk about creation? Because by talking about creation, we have to also talk about the creator. Okay. In this context, you initially said that it is logical that the world is a creation and there should be Isvara as a creator, correct? In fact, if you read the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, the same argument is made, because the second sutra, the first sutra is Athato Brahma Jijnasa, second sutra is Janmadhyasya Yataha. So the Janmadhyasya Yataha sutra is the sutra which is presenting what is this Brahman, because the first sutra is saying that thereafter, therefore, desire to know Brahman, correct? That thereafter is once you have sadhana chatushtaya, so you have a certain qualification, adhikaritvam, based on the fact that whether you have the sadhana chatushtaya or not. And then for the one who has that adhikara, the only purushartha is really moksha. And to attain this moksha, knowing alone is the only way, because we understand that moksha means freedom from all limitation, and freedom from all limitation means it has to be limitless, and limitless cannot be created, limitless cannot be the result of any karma phala. And limitless means it should already be there here and now, but I do not know that. So the problem becomes one of ignorance. And if the problem is ignorance, solution is only knowledge. So that's how the Brahma Jignasa comes about there. That so that Brahma word also means limitless only really. Brihi Vriddhav. It comes from the Dhatu Brih, which means big. Big in the sense that unqualified big. So how do I know this Brahman means how do I then understand this Brahman? Because first sutra is talking about there is a desire to know Brahman. If you have such a desire, immediately the second sutra is presenting what is this Brahman, the Lakshana or the definition for this Brahman. Now here also, you see Vyasa did not analyze the Satyam Jnanam Anantam Swarupa Lakshana. But whichever way you start, you will go to the other thing. That's what I want to show you. Vyasa is presenting the Tatastha Lakshanam. What we call as Tatastha Lakshanam means, in Tatastha Lakshana, you are talking about something which is not intrinsic, but still you are revealing something. For example, you want to know who is Devadatta in a crowd, and then somebody says the one with the umbrella is Devadatta, correct? If you say that Devadatta does not really have umbrella as an intrinsic quality or his nature or anything, correct? But still the umbrella can be used to reveal Devadatta. Okay. Or you ask which is your friend's house. You go to some place where you don't know a particular house, you want to go to your friend's house, you don't know which house it is. Then somebody says the house on which the crow is sitting is your friend's house. Means crow again, in fact, you can even use it in past tense, correct? If the crow was sitting there and it flew away, you can still say the house on which crow was sitting is the house you are looking for. So even though currently that thing is not even qualifying the object can still be revealed by using which is not intrinsic to itself, any quality. So that is called Tatastha Lakshanam. Because only during the Lakshana Kala it is there, but it is not part of its Swabhava or anything, but still it can be used to reveal something. Like that, here Vyasa is using this Jagat Karanatvam of Brahman as the Lakshana or the definition or a characteristic to reveal what Brahman is. Why it has to be done? Because otherwise we cannot account for the world. Because any darshana, traditionally if you take in India at least, any darshana has to account for the perception of the world. You cannot deny the perception itself. Nobody can deny the perception. Even the Buddhist who is talking about Shunyavada and all that, he has to account for the perception of the world. So they give some theories, either Kshanika Vijnanavada or just Maya, they say. So we have to account for the world. And not only the world. World is an object and you are there as the subject, correct? Dealing with the world. The individual who is dealing with the world, who thinks he or she is part of the world. So these two things have to be first addressed. And if the world is a creation, then a creator also we have to talk about what is the nature of that creator. So these are the three things which nobody can leave out. In any darshana, you are presenting the individual, the world, and if the world is a creation, the creator. All these three have to be presented and their relationship, what is their reality, all these things we have to talk about. That nobody can not do it. Now that being the case, one more point is, can we even say that logically we can establish Isvara? Because the Nayayikas say that they can do that. Because they say that if there is a karya, then it is sakartrikam. Like that, they give a logic first. Okay, any karya should have a karta. Therefore, they say that another reason they give for establishing Isvara is, if you take the entire world as karya, the jiva, any one jiva does not have the knowledge of everything, correct? Because the one who creates something should know it. This is another logic, separately they say always, correct? So, Gatakarta, Gatajnaha, correct? You have to say that Yoyat Karta, Saha Tadnyaha. Like that, they make a general statement. So, the one who is the maker of something should be a knower of that. If that is the case, a knower has to be conscious beings only, and none of the conscious beings can claim to know everything in this world. Therefore, the jiva themselves cannot be the creator, and therefore, other than all these samsari jivas, there has to be an Ishvara who is Sarvajnaha and Sarvashaktiman, who should be able to create this world. Like this, they make an anumana. Now, this anumana may look convincing, but it is not really clinching anumana. Bhashyakara, in fact, does not accept that. If you go and read the Brahma Sutra Bhashya of this Janmadhyasya Yataha, the interesting point is the Vaisheshika, in fact, there says that Bhashyakara first says that this sutra is based on the Taittiriya Upanishad Vakya, correct? There is the third Valli is there, Bhrigu Valli. So in that it starts, Yato va imani bhutani jayante ye najata nijivanti yat prayanti abhisamvishanti. Like that, the Brahma Lakshanam is given. So yataha means from which everything is born, by which everything is sustained, into which everything resolves. Tad Brahma, Tad Vijijñāsasva, and all like that. That is Brahman. And you have to know that. Like that, the Bhrigu is Varuni. Varuna is teaching Bhrigu, his son, etc. It is there in the Taittiriya Upanishad. So Bhashyakara says this Janmadhyasya Yataha Sutra, because Janmadihi Asya Yataha is the sutra. So Janmadihi means for which Janma etc. is there, correct? This Jagat. Jagataha, Asya Jagataha, Janmadihi Yataha. Means from which this world, which has this Srishti, Sthiti and Laya, all three, because Adi Padat we have to take all three, from which all three are there for this world. That is Brahman. Like this only, that sutra is presenting Brahman as Jagat Karanam. Jagat Karanam means it is also Srishti Karanam, Sthiti Karanam, Laya Karanam. Like that we have to understand. Okay. Now the Vaisheshika comes and says, no, this sutra is not talking about any Veda Vakya, because Veda is not even required to prove that there is a creator. So this sutra is actually referring to the Anumana only, that there has to be an Ishvara. Then Bhashyakara even makes a point that Brahma Sutra itself is only analyzing Upanishadam Brahma. In fact, it is a sutra of all the Upanishad Vakyas. He says if Brahma Sutra is a garland, then each flower in that garland is a Upanishad Vakya. So the whole analysis is on Upanishad Vakyas only. So how can you say that it is actually referring to an Anumana? In fact, he goes on and also says that by pure Anumana, you cannot even establish that the world is a Karya. Understand that. Because unless you establish the world is a creation, you cannot even talk about a creator. In fact, there are many people who say that if you take Jains, they say that world is always like this. Why do you require a creator then? It's not a creation. There is also a concept of Swabhava Vada and all that. So even modern scientists and all, you can take somewhat like that, because they reduce everything to some atoms and all that. And our own Vaisheshik also they do that, correct? Anu, Dvinuk, Trenuk, all that. They talk about Paramanu. Now, Paramanus have a Swabhava to come together and then form this world, they say, naturally. You don't require anything else. They can be the Karana. Or the Sankhya, Nirishwara Sankhya say, Pradhana itself, the Trigunatmika Pradhana can come together. And or if its equilibrium is disturbed, then this whole world is formed and all that. They have their own theory like that. But all of these things, Bhashyakara negates in that Sutra Bhashya, because by pure logic alone, you can never establish that the world is a creation. So you cannot establish a creator. So only the Veda has to reveal that there is a creator, and that creator is Sagunam Brahma, Brahman as the Jagat Karanam. And it also is revealing that because only if Brahman is the Karanam of everything which is here, Advaita itself can be established. Otherwise, if Brahman is not a Karanam for something, then you will have to see that that object is independent of Brahman, and what is the cause of that and all you have to analyze, correct? Then you will have Dvaitam, you will have a second thing. So unless Ishvara Siddhi is there, there is no Advaita Siddhi. That's why Vyasacharya also is not giving the Swarupa Lakshanam. Vyasacharya is giving the Tatastha Lakshanam. But from the Tatastha Lakshanam itself, you can go to Swarupa also. How? Because if you take Yato va imani bhutani and all we are saying, correct? Then is that Brahman some third thing other than you? What is that Brahman? From which everything has come, by which everything is sustained, into which everything goes. What is that? Later on it says, Anandadhyeva khal vimani bhutani jayante, Anande najatani jivanti, Anandam prayanti abhisamvishanti. Like that. Ananda, from this Ananda only everything came and all that. Okay. Where can Ananda reside? Ananda can be there only in a conscious being. Jada does not have any Ananda, correct? So, even if you go further in the Taittiriya Upanishad itself, taking this Tatastha Lakshanam, it will point to a conscious being. And once it points to a conscious being, the only conscious being is yourself. You cannot objectify another conscious being. You can objectify another sentient body, but that does not mean that you have objectified another consciousness. There is only one consciousness which is shining in all the sentient beings. That is our understanding, because Shruti also reveals that. But even otherwise, to say that another consciousness is there, you have to objectify that. But no other consciousness is available for objectification. So, by taking this Tatastha Lakshanam, you will go to the Swarupa Lakshanam. By looking at that Ananda portion, and Ananda can be there only in a conscious being, and that conscious being cannot be anybody other than myself. You have to arrive at that. Or if you start with Swarupa Lakshanam also, like I told you, Satyam Jnanam, but when you go to Anantam, from Anantam, if Brahman is really limitless, it has to pervade everything, or it is the one which gives existence to everything, correct? It cannot be away from anything. So that way also you will arrive at the Tatastha Lakshana that Brahman is Jagat Karana because of the Anantatvam. Because how do you say it is Ananta means? It is even the cause of space and time. That's what Bhashyakara says there. In fact, that Bhashyam is very important. That shows that we always knew that space-time is created. It's not absolute. Okay, only 100 years back, all these scientists are talking about space-time as relative and space-time in the context of matter and all that. Only after Einstein, the modern scientists came to know that. Otherwise, if Newton and all, they thought that space and time are there, and all objects and even physics, the scientific laws apply to objects within the space-time. Space-time itself was outside the physical laws. But space-time is always understood in our tradition as created. And time itself is relative. The time dilation and all we are talking about, because one day for human being is not one day for Pitra. Pitra's one day is actually one lunar month, correct? Because their night is the Krishna Paksha and their day is our Shukla Paksha. Similarly, one day for Deva is 1 year, because Uttarayana is their day, Dakshinayana is their night. And one day for Brahmaji is mind-boggling calculation. Okay, Brahmaji lives for 100 years, we say, and his one day is 4.32 billion years, we say, because it is 1000 Chaturyugas. One Chaturyuga is like 43 lakhs 20,000 years, okay, or 4.32 million years. So 1000 times that is 4.32 billion. So one day of Brahmaji is 4.32 billion. One night is again 4.32. So that way 24 hours of Brahmaji is 8.64 billion years for by our time. Like that, if you take into 365 into 100, it goes into trillions of years. So time itself is so mind-boggling to even think of such numbers. So many zeros are there. Zeros have no meaning anymore. We can't really get it in our head. But such a thing is there. But Brahman is the Karanam of all that also. Okay. The Brahmaji as a creator, we say, is also Hiranyagarbha Pada only. Right? We talk about it as a status to be gained by karma and upasana and all that. And it's all within creation. So Brahman is the creation. Brahman is the creator of all these things, or the Karana for all these things, cause for all these things, means then only the Anantatvam we can establish. So if you go by the Swarupa Lakshana also, when you look at the Ananta, you have to talk about Brahman as the Karanam of everything. Or Tatastha Lakshanam itself you talk that Brahman is the creator of everything, and from there also if you go, you have to come to that Ananda also is from this Brahman only, and it is Ananda Swarupa, means it becomes Chetana, and that Chaitanya is not away from you. So whichever way you go, you have to come to the same understanding. So here the most important thing is how this Brahman is finally understood. Because unless we understand the Jagat Karanatvam, there is no Anantatvam. So to understand Brahman, it has to be first presented as Jagat Karanam. But since it is Jagat Karanam, one more thing also we understand is that whatever is Karya, Karya is only Nama Rupa. Is that clear? This is where we have to connect with the Vacharambana Shruti. Vacharambanam Vikaro Namadheyam Ritika Ityeva Satyam. So the Vacharambana Shruti says that any Karya is only Nama Rupa. It's all only names and forms only. More and more names and forms. You take anything in this world, you say part. Then somebody says, no, there is no part. Really, clay alone is there. Okay, clay. No, only molecules are there. No, only atoms are there. This atom is there, that atom is there, or within atom also only some particles are there. Electrons are there, nucleus is there. Like this, names after names are coming out. In names and forms, you have more names and forms, more names and forms. Where will it finally end means it has to end in this consciousness only is the only basis for all these things, because it is the only substance. Everything else is only name and form. You can reduce each and every name and form to further some other name and form, and finally it has to rest. The Adhara or Ashraya is only Brahman. because that is the isness. The very isness, or whichever thing you say as is, that is really Brahman actually. Because this point also Bhashyakara brings out very beautifully in the Gita Bhashya. If you read, he says that you say pot is, cloth is, clay is, whatever. In all these things, in all these cognitions, the pot name and form, cloth name and form, some other name and form, everything keeps on changing. So the pot buddhi is replaced by the cloth buddhi. Cloth buddhi is replaced by some other buddhi, correct? Whatever object you are perceiving. But the is buddhi never goes, he says. Correct? Pot is there. Clay is there. The is buddhi never goes. Is buddhi is the invariable in every cognition. That is nothing but Brahman. That is Satyam, correct? That is the very existence. And that's how we have to understand this Brahman, which is the one which gives existence to all the names and forms. And the names and forms are mithya, then automatically they become mithya, correct? Because Brahman alone is Satyam. Sadeva Satyam, like that Upanishad itself says. First the Sadvastu is presented, then the Chandogya makes a very clear statement, Sadeva Satyam. The Sadeva Satyam is an ontological term. So it points out that this alone is the truth, or that which is there as it is always. Once you have ascertained it as this, it never changes. Only the Sadvastu or Brahman is like that. Everything else keeps on changing. They are all mithya. And all mithya vastu are all karya. They all depend on the karana. Okay, so the Brahman as Jagat Karanam, only if we present like that Brahman is Isvara, the world will be accounted for. Everything within the world is a karya, is an amarupa. Then Brahman as Isvara alone is Satyam. Everything else becomes mithya. Then only Advaita also can be established. So this is the teaching methodology. The Karya Karana Prakriya is a very important Prakriya for us. And when we present the Karya Karana Prakriya, again we include everything, not only the material world, even the mind and life, correct? Prana, everything is included in our creation model. So our creation model is a more complete model, because currently the scientists are all struggling. They don't know how. They can't even decide whether there is something called consciousness or there or not, whether something called mind is there or not, even what is life. They are not able to decide anything. Because when a person dies, I don't think there is a big difference. If you look at the body of a person as a quantum system or something, I don't know what has changed so drastically that there is no life there, correct? If you simply look at it as matter, nothing much has changed really. So then how do we understand life then? Means there is no answer today for all that. But we are talking about prana as a Shakti, mind is there. But even prana and mind are all part of creation only for us. It's all Sukshma Sharira. And Brahman is the Karana for all these things also. And that alone is Satyam, and that is you in fact. So in this context, even how we understand Ishvara. If you take Bhagavad Gita also, all these Vaishnavas and those who talk about Bhakti, they talk about Bhagavad Gita a lot, correct? And Krishna Bhakti is the greatest thing and all that. No, we do not have anything to say about Bhakti itself. No Advaitin is going to argue against Bhakti or anything. But how did Bhagavan talk about Bhakti? Means he says Chaturvida Bhajante Mam. Correct? 4 types of people worship me, or they are devoted to me. Who are they? Artho, Artha, Arthi. These two we know. One who is in some kind of a problem, correct? He is an Arthaha. During difficult times, everybody thinks of Bhagavan. There is nothing new in that. or others are taking Bhagavan like a partner, Artharthi. Whenever you engage in any action, any pursuit, you also pray to Bhagavan, you take Bhagavan with you as a partner, Artharthi. Because you want some punya, and based on that punya, again you want karma phala. But then beyond that, Jignasu also is a bhakta. Because the important thing is, even if you talk about Jagat as a creation and the creator as Bhagavan, correct? Jagat Karta. What is the nature of that Jagat Karta, one has to know, correct? Without that, how are you going to do any bhakti? Without knowing the Swarupa of this Bhagavan, what kind of a bhakta you are? You are only having some imagination then, okay? Because most people start like that. Everybody starts with an idea that, okay, I am so limited, that everybody knows. But there has to be some great power beyond me, because the world is all in certain order, correct? So many things are in order in the world. Anybody who appreciates the order in the world will be able to appreciate that somebody is keeping all these things orderly. Because even if you talk to the scientists, or you don't even have to talk to scientists, let us take some simple example like gravity. Now today gravity is 9.8, some number, correct? The gravitational force, we say 9.8. Then tomorrow it becomes 10. Day after tomorrow it becomes 8. Like this, if it happens, can we even have any machine? In fact, it becomes a little less, means we cannot even stay on the earth, I think. We'll all be floating. Or if it becomes a little bit more, you cannot be there on the earth again. You will go into the earth's crust, I think, with so much gravitational force. And this, I'm only talking about the gravity. But you take so many other constants are there scientifically also, like Planck's constant, etc. Even if one decimal changes in that, we cannot have this world as we see it today. So everything is in such precision that the world is actually operating in a certain orderly manner where laws are all obeyed. Because even physicists assume certain things like symmetry, and all the physical laws have to be applicable in all the places at all times and all that. These are all assumptions only. Understand that. So these assumptions are so much taken for granted, even the scientists may not think about it normally. But they are all very basic assumptions which need not be fulfilled always. So the one who understands the order understands that there is some other power greater than me which is maintaining this order. But still, what is the Swarupa of this creator? You would like to know. That person is a bigger bhakta, correct? He is a Jignasu. But once you know that Swarupa, how do you know that? You can only know it as yourself. There is no other way you can know it. Why? Because you take how Kenopanishad talks about this Brahman or Isvara, it says, Anya deva tad viditad atho, aviditad adhi. Correct? So, viditad anyat. Why should it say that? Because whatever you know, we all know it only through mind. By objectifying through our mind only we can know anything, any object. But Brahman, if you say it is a Jagat Karanam and all that, it is limitless, and then say it is one object, then you are basically limiting it to that object, correct? No, this contradiction, how Dvaitins and all they really reconcile, I have no idea. I cannot even think how can they say that Vishnu means should have 4 arms, Shankam, Chakram and all. They literally say that. It's not that it is Upasya Murti and all that. For them, it's not like that. Understand? Even if you read Bellangonda Ramaraya Kavi, he becomes very exasperated sometimes with all these things. His Tika and Bhagavad Gita, if you read, it is very interesting. So they are all taking these things very literally. Krishna means he is with a flute and all that. Okay, Mr. Krishna only, they are saying he is Bhagavan, etc. So if you reduce it to an object, then that object is limited, correct? So Brahman cannot be any one object which you can know through your mind. So Anya Deva Tad Vidithat. Upanishad also says, not even I am not saying that. Then what about that we don't know then? Does it make Brahman as something unknown? Means no. Aviditad Adhi. It is different from not known also. Okay, because here unknown can be taken in two ways. One is the unmanifest also is unknown, correct? Because the manifest world is knowable because it is all differentiated and manifest. But if it becomes potential and unmanifest, then it is not known. But even that, Brahman is neither the manifest world nor the unmanifest potential. It is different from that. Or Brahman is not any one known object, but because of that you cannot say it is unknown also, because it is yourself. Because if you say that it is not anything which is known and it is also not something which is unknown, if these two categories are removed, what is left is only yourself. In fact, in that Kenopanishad Bhashyam also interesting Purvapaksha Siddhanta is there. So the Purvapakshi says that if Brahman is neither known, not unknown, there is nothing like that is there. You can never know Brahman then. You cannot have any Brahma Jignasa. Then Bhashyakara points out, hey, Brahman is your own very Swarupa, which need not be known through any means of knowledge. It is always the one which is lighting up everything, correct? So then only Kenopanishad, immediately what it says is very, very interesting. So it says, Anyadeva tad vidita dato avidita dadhi. Then it says, Yad vacha anabhyutitam yena vag abhyudhyate. Tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam ididam upasate. Yen manasana manute yenahur manomatam. Tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam ididam upasate. Like this, it keeps on going. Okay. So, yad vacha anabhyuditam, that which is not indicated by any word, any one word, because Brahman cannot be the meaning of any one word. Understand that. If it is limitless, and you say that it is a meaning of one word, means it is limited to that object alone. So, it is not the meaning of any one word, but yena vag abhyudyate means what? By which the word itself is revealed or understood. Because it is the consciousness by which the words become meaningful. But it's not the meaning of any one word. Tadeva brahmatvam vidhi. So know that consciousness which lights up the word and lights up the meaning of the word as Brahman. Nedam, and explicitly also Upanishad says, Nedam edidam upasate. Yad idam upasate. Whatever you are worshipping as this, it is not Brahman. It cannot be Brahman. It cannot be something away from you as this. Because only Yushmad and Asmad, two things are only there. And whatever is Yushmad, whatever is this, can never be Brahman. It is always your own very Swarupa. Atma Swarupam only is Brahma Swarupam also, and that need not be known. Because that's why it is Swaprakasha Swata Siddha. To know yourself, you don't have to use any means of knowledge. That's what Kenopanishad says. But not only Kenopanishad. If you take Brihadaranyaka also, the 1.4.10 where Aham Brahmasmi comes. Okay. There also, in Brihadaranyaka, there is something called Vidya Sutram and Avidya Sutram. So, Atma ityeva upasita. Like that, the Vidya Sutram comes first. That means know all that is there here as Atma alone. Okay. That is first presented. And then later on, then Aham Brahmasmi and all comes. Afterwards, Avidya Sutram is there. What is that? Atha yaha anyam devatam upaste anyaha asau anyaha aham asmiti nasa veda. This is called Avidya Sutra in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So anyaha asau anyaha aham. So if you are worshipping a devata as other than you, considering that the devata is something else, I am different from that devata, then you do not know. You are an ajnani. You are only the pashu of the devata, like that it goes on then. Pashu reva I am, like that. So you are like an animal for that devata then, because you are then offering to the devata, expecting some blessing from the devata, and devata also is using you, like how we use the cows, correct? We offer something to the cow, and then we are using the cows and other animals to our benefit. Like that only you are. Otherwise, you are the Atma of the Devata itself, it says. Because if you know the reality, you are the self of even the Devatas. That's why they cannot stop you from giving you moksha. Once you know the reality, nobody can stop you. That portion of Bhashya also is there. The Upanishad itself talks about that. So the idea that Ishvara has some kind of a father in heaven and all is ridiculous, correct? It can never be established. Then how can you even say Ishvara is the Karanam, Jagat Karanam and all that, or limitless? None of that you can establish by making Ishvara as one more object. So Ishvara Upasya Murti is a different concept. We are not saying that you should not do any Upasana. You can have your own Ishta Devata. You can have your own, all forms are Ishvara's forms. That way you can invoke Ishvara in any form. And particular Devata forms are all, it's all coming to us already in our tradition, and very well we should do Upasana. But don't think that Ishvara, that form alone is Ishvara's form, correct? Then it is all, then you don't know anything. And you are separate from that Ishvara also. Because if Ishvara is everything, Ishvara cannot leave out yourself. Your body, mind, sense complex, the very subject also is Ishvara. Both the subject and object are based on one reality alone. That reality is Ishvara, that is Brahman in fact. Because Ishvara is this Chaitanyam, Upahita Chaitanyam only we call it as Ishvara. So many people think that we deny the reality of Ishvara. But Ishvara is really nothing but the same consciousness conditioned by Maya alone, we call it as Ishvara, correct? Nobody can deny the very existence of Ishvara. But Ishvaratvam is only Upadhikritam. That is a different thing. By saying that, we are not saying Ishvara is not there. Understand that. Ishvara is the same consciousness, limitless consciousness. When we look at it through the Maya Upadhi, then Ishvara is the same. Brahman alone is Ishvara. Similarly, Jiva also is the same consciousness alone. But when looked at through the individual Upadhi, through the particular body, mind, sense complex, the same consciousness alone is Jiva. Both Ishvara and Jiva are the same consciousness alone. So we never say that Ishvara is not there, but Ishvara is Brahman. Okay, that is the teaching here. So the main points which I wanted to tell you are, unless we present Brahman as Jagat Karanam Ishvara, we cannot really teach Advaita itself. Because only by presenting Jagat Karanam Brahma, we can show that all that is here is really Brahman alone, and Brahman's Anantatvam also can only be established by that. Brahman being the cause of the very space-time alone makes it really Ananta with respect to space and time. And also Brahman being the Karana of every object here also makes it the object-wise also it is Ananta, correct? So whenever we talk about Ananta, we have to talk it with reference to Desha Kala Vastutaha, correct? with reference to space, time, and all objects. And so presenting Brahman as Jagat Karanam, only we can establish this Anantatvam. But and another reason for presenting that is only by presenting Brahman as Jagat Karanam, Brahman is Satyam. And all the Karya are only Nama Rupa, correct? Vacharambanam, Vikaro, Nama Dheyam. So the Satyam Mithya also, to make the world Mithya, and Brahman is the only Satyam, Sadeva Satyam, then only Advaita also. Then only it is Ekameva Advitiyam. Otherwise, the world will become as real as Brahman, correct? If Brahman is separate and world is something else, means then there is no Advaita. So that's why Isvara, we are all very much Isvaravadi, and all Jnani, they are all Bhaktas only. Because Jnani to Atmaiva me matam, finally Bhagavan says. You are Jignasu also is a Bhakta, but once Jignasu knows the reality of Bhagavan as not separate from oneself, and Bhagavan is not one more object in this creation, correct? Bhagavan is non-separate from my own Swarupa. Once you know that you are not separate from Bhagavan, and Bhagavan himself says that, he says, Jnani to Atmaiva. Jnani is the greatest Bhakta. Amongst all the Bhaktas, Jnani is greatest Bhakta. So, Udara Sarveite, Jnani to Atmaiva me matam, he says. Everybody, all the Bhaktas are all exalted people only. But Jnani is special in that because Jnani is not separate from myself. In fact, Jnani is the one who does not consider Bhagavan as one more object. By that, you are not really making Bhagavan into another limited being, correct? Bhagavan is your own self, which is the limitless consciousness. So that is the understanding one should have. And to arrive at that, we have to talk about Isvara as Jagat Karanam, and Isvara Bhakti also is important to have Adhikaritvam. Without an understanding of Isvara and without having Mumukshutvam, there is no Karma Yoga also. And without Karma Yoga, there is no Chitta Shuddhi. And without Chitta Shuddhi, there is no scope of any moksha. People can be talking about speculatively, but that doesn't make them into a jnani or anything. Vedanta is not about scholarly study of Shastra. Vedanta is not about collecting facts. It's not a factual knowledge, in the sense that it's not some factual knowledge about some things and all that. Vedanta is about self-transformation. You have to see yourself in the vision of the Shastra and Guru. Whatever the vision Shastra and Guru are presenting, in that light, in that vision, you have to see yourself. And that has to transform your identity, how you look at yourself. In the process, the way you look at the world and the Ishvara, everything also will change. That transformation can come, it is a process. It's not going to come like a light bulb, you switch on and then it burns, correct? It's not like that. It's a process. And in that process, that Ishvara Bhakti is very, very important. And then finally it has to culminate, that Ishvara Bhakti has to culminate in the understanding of Ishvara Swarupa as not separate from oneself, correct? Then only it has borne its fruit. Otherwise, if Ishvara is still one more object which you are doing Upasana as Idam, then still you do not know that. Ata Mimamsyam eva, like that we will say then. Kenopanishad itself says that. Okay, if the Sishya still says that I know Brahman very well, like an object, then the Guru says, no, you don't know. You have to still do some analysis. You have to do Vichara still. Mimamsa you have to do. And then finally the Shishya says there, Manye Viditam, now I know. I know what is the truth. Like that, by understanding Ishvara alone, we also understand Ishvara Swarupa and our own Swarupa, and that's how even Advaita is established. Otherwise, there is no Advaita Siddhi. I hope this is clear. Any questions?
That's good explanation.
No, good explanation. Jai Shankarji.
Great.
So, in your conclusion, you mentioned about being a karma yoga, and only otherwise it's a speculative knowledge, scholarly or intellectual, and all that. So, and that's where you talk about this yoga shastra, this emotional maturity, and the emotional maturity. Can you say that the emotional maturity cannot happen without Isvara? Can
Definitely,
one?
because unless we appreciate Ishvara being manifest as all orders, including psychological order, right? This is what Swamiji, in fact, Puja Swamiji talks about bringing Ishvara into one's life, correct? He has given public talks like that. But in that, the important thing what Swamiji says is, how do we bring Ishvara into our life? Means in the way we are able to appreciate others' behavior towards us. Otherwise, we think that somebody has done something, always they are not doing something which you can accept, correct? Or something which is pleasant to you. So we generally react just like that if somebody does something to us. But then if you bring Ishvara into your life, means you are trying to even understand the background, their background, etc. Correct? The order behind such behavior. So he says, go one step further and see Ishvara's order, even in a certain behavior which is not appropriate, let us say, in a situation. That doesn't mean you should not do anything about it. That's a different thing. You can always act, but at least you don't have to react, correct? You can act appropriately, you can draw your boundaries, etc., but you don't have to have any emotional reaction, etc., which may most probably only deteriorate. The situation will only become worse, correct? So we can avoid that. So even for emotional maturity, a certain understanding of Ishvara being manifest as all the orders and Ishvara being manifest as dharma, the papa, punya, karma, everything is Ishvara only. And then only we value of values also comes from all that, correct? From a certain understanding that Ishvara only is manifest as the matrix of values which we are sensing commonly, and we have to go along with that Ishvara's order, and that is maturity really.
So you have to be a psychiatrist to understand the other person.
We don't have to be a psychiatrist, but we can at least know that there is some background to that, correct?
Okay.
That much if you have, then you are not blaming the person individually, or like we said, we are not taking it personally.
Personal.
Make it a little bit impersonal in the sense that due to something which has maybe happened in their childhood or whatever, we don't know anybody's background, correct? Completely.
Correct.
They themselves may not know, because many of these things are coming from subconscious or unconscious, we say. Because many things which happened in your childhood is no more available to your conscious memory, but all those things are still really affecting you, how you behave even as an adult. So this all psychiatrists and psychologists also, they accept that. So that certain order is there in that. If we can appreciate, then we can accept other people's behavior as it is, without having any reaction, emotional reaction.
But why do we need Ishvara for that? The concept of Ishvara, why do you need that?
Because
For emotional maturity.
Okay, even without, see, understanding the background itself can give certain emotional maturity, you are saying. But as a Vaidika, if we look at it, every order, as I told you, correct? Once there is a certain order, then you have to understand that how did this order manifest then? Who is keeping all these things in order? We have to know that. So Ishvara will, by implication, Ishvara will come into the picture there. So it's all Ishvara's order only, correct?
No, but when we look at Brahman, he is Akarta, Abhokta, nirguna, nirakara. So he's doing nothing. If he's doing nothing, that is something I need to understand.
That nothing
If
is
he does
there.
nothing, then why do we need?
Correct. We are talking about Shuddha Chaitanyam or Anupahita Chaitanyam, we say, unconditioned consciousness as it is.
Hmm.
That is true because you can understand it even in your deep sleep, nothing is happening, correct? You are there. You even have a certain enjoyment there because you are able to recollect it later on. So you are there without doing anything. Even space-time is not there, really.
No, but I was
So
thinking
you as an
about this.
existence,
Sorry.
you are there as an existent entity without being subjected to space-time or any activity or anything. So existence as it is, you can understand from your own deep sleep. You don't need anything else for that, correct?
No, even with the deep sleep, I was just thinking about it recently. I was thinking, when people usually tell us the way it is taught is when you get up, you know that you had a very good sleep, right? But what I feel is when we get up and if we have a very good sleep, it's not that we know. If I slept for 5 hours, I don't know that I was there all 5 hours. I don't have that memory, or I don't have that presence of my consciousness for 5 hours. What happens is when I get up after 5 hours, the way I feel physically tells me that I slept very well.
Correct.
So if I don't sleep very well for 5 hours, if I keep waking up, then my eyes are burning. I feel tired after 5 hours. But if I sleep very well, when I get up, I feel very good. It's not that I know my presence.
While sleeping only you cannot know that. That is true. That is why we say in deep sleep, your Sukshma Sharira also is resolved into the Karana, correct? Into yourself. The Karana Sharira, we say. At an individual level, that's what we say, Ajnanam and all that.
Mm.
The Ajnana Vritti is still there during deep sleep, or it is called Ati Sukshma Vritti. That's why. It is not even Sukshma. It is subtler than that. Why we are saying is any recollection cannot be there without having a certain Anubhava. It's what even Vidyaranya Swami also says in Panchadashi. So to recollect, it is not just, of course, when you have a very good sleep, there is a physical manifestation of that also. We are not denying that. But the thing is, it is basically a recollection of what happened then. And that recollection is possible because there has been a vritti. While sleeping, it is there, but it is not because the mind, the subject-object division is not there. You cannot know it while it is happening. So that's why you are saying you are not able to know how long you slept and all that, correct? Because time itself is not cognized then. There is no space-time. But all I am trying to point out here is, you said that it is somewhat difficult for you to understand Brahman as Akarta, Nirguna and all that. All I am trying to point out is, in your deep sleep, you are Akarta, you are Nirguna, correct? You are beyond space-time. But I am the one who slept. Leave aside all other things. The continuity of I, nobody can deny, correct? I am the one who is awake. I am the one who is dreaming in dream. I am the one who slept. The I is invariable. And in the deep sleep, the I is there even when there is no cognition of space-time or any activity. There is no mental activity also, you are not cognizing. Nothing is there. Now, if these three are there, how can you say the deep sleep only is your nature? Being a waker or dreamer is not your nature. That's all not intrinsic to you, we say that, correct? In fact, this question is answered by Bhashyakara in the Taittiriya Upanishad Bhashya. There is a Upasankramana Bhashya is there. In the end of Anandavalli, the Upasankramati, like that, different things we talk about, this Upasankramana Bhashya is there. There, this question Bhashyakara raises. He says that how can you say that that state alone is your Swarupa? Because he says that consciousness as it is there in deep sleep, it is there during waking, it is there during dream also. But the other things are only there during that particular state. They come and go. So that's why whatever is coming and going cannot be intrinsic to you. You as a conscious being, you are there without any identification in deep sleep. But once you are waking, you are identifying with a particular body, mind, sense complex, but still you are a conscious being, correct? That nobody can deny. In dream also you are identifying with some dream body, mind, sense complex, let us say, and you are part of the dream world. But there also you are a conscious being. Therefore, whatever is invariable in all three states, that alone is your nature. Whatever comes and goes is not intrinsic to you, that is different. And whatever comes and goes only is all the guna and kriya, everything, correct? They are all mithya then. Satyam means it has to be there as it is always, once you have ascertained. And that is only that you are a conscious being. And that in itself, it has no kriya or any guna or anything. You are a partless whole. That is the only reality. Because all our problems are, we identify with the whatever I see, correct? This I have already told. Vedanta is very simple. The only sadhana you have to do is whatever I see is not I. Whatever is an object of knowledge is not Brahman, correct? Even today we said, Nedam ididam upasate. Yen manasana manute. Brahma, anything you can think with your mind is not Brahman. Because Brahman is the one which is making the mind act as the mind. Correct? Manasaha manas, it is. It is Shrotrasya Shrotram, Manasaha Manaha, Vachoha Vacham, Pranasya Pranaha, like that. So that is yourself, the conscious being. And that alone is your nature, very nature. And that is free from all names and forms, all kinds of whatever intrinsic attributes you attribute to yourself.
Now, what about, Jiddu Krishnamurti's theory of, this consciousness? They don't talk about Isvara. J. Krishnamurti.
I don't have much exposure to J. Krishnamurti, so I don't know what to say.
Buddhism, right? It's the same as Buddhism.
No. J. Krishnamurti, he also talks about everything is consciousness, but they don't bring the understanding of Isvara.
I thought Shastra. Buddhism was also like that. I thought Buddhism was very similar. No?
No, Buddhism, they talk about Shunya. Here, J. Krishnamurti's, teachings or whatever, they talk about everything is consciousness, but they don't bring this Isvara.
Yeah, that difference between Buddhism and Advaita Vedanta, I find that interesting. Because I feel like I need a clearer understanding on why we need Brahman or Ishvara in the equation. If he is not doing anything, if he is just a presence.
Like I said, before we understand Nirgunam Brahma, first we have to account for the world, correct? You are perceiving the world. You as an individual who is perceiving the world. So you have to account for that. From there only we start. We start the whole teaching from you being a participant in this world. You are there, world is there. Then from there we are saying there is something called Brahman, which is the cause of everything, including your own body, mind, sense complex. That's how we start.
But we also say the cause is Akarta.
Correct. How does the cause become Akarta? Only
because the Karya doesn't...
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so it...
Karya is Mithya.
Somehow I feel like we are going in circles.
It's not circles. That's what you have to start at the right place and then you will go to the right understanding.
Right.
The world, we cannot deny the world appearance or anything like that as Maya. Buddhists may be doing that. I am not very familiar how the traditional teaching of Buddhism happens. So I don't want to comment on that. But generally, like what Srini said, they are talking about world as Maya. But then they don't have any Brahman or anything. They are saying Shunya and all that. How that can be? It is very illogical to me, at least. Okay, and of course, it is against Shruti Pramana. So for us, it doesn't make any sense. But if we come to our teaching, we have to first present the Jagat Karanam. By presenting one Jagat Karanam and the Jagat as Karya, the Karya becomes Mithya. Then the Karanatvam of Jagat, this Jagat Karanam also is Mithya, means then whatever is left out is the Nirgunam Brahma. That's what we say. So you negate all these things. When you talk about Jagat Karanam, it is Adhyaropa actually. We are deliberately superimposing. So to explain away everything as Mithya, and then when we explain away everything as Mithya, the negation happens. And whatever is left is Anya Deva Vidita Dato Avidita Dati. Correct? Whatever is left is other than whatever you know and what you don't know also, which is yourself. That is how we can reveal the reality. Because it is your very Swarupa. It can never be objectified. And it need not be objectified. So the whole teaching is a little bit subtle and difficult to get, is because we are trying to teach you something which is not an object. And all our life we have known things only by objectifying through our mind. But this is about yourself, which cannot be objectified and which need not be objectified. And that self alone is everything, in fact. It is a limitless self. It gives existence to both the subject and the object.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll conclude.
Thank you.
Prayer.
Yes.
Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Kashchid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet, Asato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate, Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Thank you.